society and government to Caesar and the empire. Hic visus movens producitor ab scribelatinam.org. Velit tu aut alias quem cognoscis linguam Romanorum discere? Qui nos temptes. In the following slides, you will recognize senators by a broad purple stripe and red shoes, equites by two small purple stripes, and plebes by nothing. Among the citizens of Rome, first the upper classes in gray. You will see the 30 founding tribes called patricians evolve into nobles, and then evolve into optimates, or aristocrats. These will be opposed by populares. Down in the social classes, however, senators are at the top level, as we already said, with a broad stripe and red shoes, equites with two narrow stripes, and plebes at the lowest, with nothing. Of other terms that will occur, the Sabines are one of the three founding contingents of the original Roman population. The Socii are the Italian allies who tried to become citizens in the 100s BC. Aequi and Volsci are peoples to the south, as are Epirotes when they invaded from Greece. Etruscans are to the north, as are Celts or Gauls, same word. Latins are just to the south and basically part of the Roman people right from the start. Macedonians are, of course, way off in Greece, northern Greece. Poeni or Punics are Carthaginians who fight 3 wars, and Samnites are the hard mountain people. Social evolution. Rome is a conglomeration from 3 contingents, Sabines, Romans, and Etruscans, and these produce the original stock that the Roman people come from. Slaves also are gradually absorbed into the empire, or sometimes conquered peoples are settled in, like the Albans and the Latins. As slaves are freed, they become citizens and grow the massive lower class of plebeians, so that in 510, when the monarchy ends and the republic begins, Rome is now large enough to fight 3 wars at once and start absorbing in conquered peoples en masse. During this time, plebeians also gain more rights, such as marriage, to patricians. By 366, the first plebeian obtains consulship, destroying the old term patrician and making nobles the new term to include also those plebes who are now in the ruling class. During the time of the 3 world wars called Punic Wars, Rome becomes such a huge military power that suddenly hundreds of thousands of people are being enslaved as enemy populations are conquered. By the last century, the Republic is too large to control its slaves, allies, politicians, or greed. A new party of populares emerges to topple it all. The culmination is Marius, Sulla, Pompey, and Caesar, who all rule by military fiat. The Cursus Honorum was the ladder or even tree of posts by which young nobles would ascend to power. Starting as a military tribune, one could specialize and go into it as a legate, but more commonly one would return to Rome and become something minor, like maybe a priest or a minor judge called a viginti sexuire. With time, one could attain one of the prestigious offices like quaestorship, treasurer, or tribune, such as plebe advocate, who had the sacred power of veto. Higher up, the office of aedile could be either plebe or senatorial. Above that was the real power. Judges called praetors were the first of the 3 major magistrates, who would rule in a consul's absence. The most prestigious priestly offices were also available from here. The consul himself was the one who possessed the authority, or imperium, symbolized by the fasces. They were 2 in number, and they would separate off and rule in opposite months or even on opposite days. Only former consuls could fill the censorship, which was the gatekeeper of who could be counted as a senator, which included the privileges of wearing senatorial garb, sitting in a cella curulis, and being counted as nobility, both for oneself and one's future descendants. In time of emergency, consuls could be replaced by a single dictator, who would rule for a brief period of time, usually 6 months to a year, because the fear was that he might become a king. The Romans had kicked out their kings and greatly feared this kind of tyranny, and so even dictators were rare. Lastly, former consuls could go to the provinces and be a governor called a proconsul or propraetor. Besides the magistrates, there were the assemblies, The Senate was like the Pentagon, the real money and hence military power, and the originator of laws, therefore. The censured assembly was like our House of Representatives, except that it was mildly weighted in favor of the rich. On the other hand, the patricians remained firmly ensconced in the Assembly of Curies, which was like our Senate. Cursus and Honorum was like our executive and judicial branches, except that the censor, tribune, and consul had legislative power over assemblies as well, the censor determining who gets into the Senate and the other two presiding over their assemblies. Lastly, you will need to know these symbols. Purple is senators, green patricians, blue equites, gray plebes. Crossed sword symbolizes the responsibility to spend money for huge entertainments such as gladiators. The thought bubble designates right to think up, debate, and propose a law to other assemblies for ratification, while an additional light bulb signifies the right to just instantly enact a law by edict. The gray scaffold signifies a relationship of a magistrate presiding over an assembly. Money symbol means it's needed there. Exclamation point, tyranny, fasces, supreme authority, and scroll, law. In 753, Rome is founded by a conglomeration of the three local peoples, Romans, Etruscans, and Sabines, who form each of the thirds of the two assemblies. Notably, the Senate is the senior one, thinking up laws, and both are presided over by the king. Seeing the growth of the lower population, King Servius transfers the powers to a new censurate assembly, which is of the military men, thereby leaving the curiate assembly as merely sanctioning or vetoing laws after the fact. In 510, the kings are kicked out and replaced by two consuls, although they are not called that for another 200 years. The consuls consult the assemblies and then enforce their acts. Exploited, soon the plebes have had enough and secede from Rome until they get their two demands of a plebeian tribune to stop governmental acts and an aedile to direct public money to health and infrastructure. Plebeians soon start taking control of their magistrates, in particular the ones presiding over their assembly, the new Comitia Tributa, which had been formed mainly for local matters as a neighborhood association. During the hiatus of the Decemvirate, the Romans bring back from Greece the 12 Tables, which are civil law for doing lawsuits. Presided over by an egalitarian tribune, the Committee of Tribes soon gets the right to formulate and propose laws. The bizarre occurrence of a ruling tribune causes the upper classes to safeguard appointment to the Senate in the hands of a new magistrate called a censor. Plebeian power goes right on increasing in the hands of their tribunes, now even forcing consuls to abdicate and appoint a dictator. And it happens again in 366 when the first plebeian attains the top rank of consul, thereby forcing the upper classes to safeguard the judicial discretion in another new magistrate, this time called a praetor. As aediles klutz the public games, nobles bring their purses in to help out and thereby wow the crowds with their spending. Total freedom occurs around 300 as the plebes get the right of edict to not have to submit their laws to the other assemblies, causing the curiate assembly to disappear, as the vanishing of the last vestige of the patricians. As the Punic Wars get going, more and more traveling praetors or peregrini get appointed to go enforce justice where thousands of Roman soldiers, citizens, and allies bicker over the details of captured resources, slaves, laws, and treaties. Hardened by the bloodlust of war and enslavement, the gladiatorial games and public entertainments take off in the 250s. By this time, the rich are so numb and insensate to the plight of lower-class poverty that the Gracchi brothers, as demagogue tribunes, are able to create a whole new populares party, though not without losing their lives in the process. The situation rapidly decays into a series of civil wars, the first being Sulla versus Marius, which eventually culminates with the triumvirate and then emperorship of Julius Caesar.